Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It's Sunday night. We're coming up on 10 minutes before 8 o'clock Eastern Time. I hope everybody had a very good Sunday. The humidity levels here were just wonderfully low, and temperatures did manage to get up into the 80s. It was just very nice and very dry. So I figured it was time to come on and let's update you on Tropical Storm Chris, which is sitting off the North Carolina coast. We also have what is left now of Beryl, which is no longer a tropical storm, but has degenerated into an open wave. The remnants moving through the Leeward Islands, actually racing through the northern leewards at this point. And there is a chance that when this system, what's left of this, reaches the Bahamas later this week, where conditions are going to be more favorable for development, warm water temperatures, low wind shear, we could see this fire up again. So we're going to watch it. The models, some of the models are indicating this, and I think it's fair considering that Chris developed here in this environment, which was rather favorable off the southeast coast of the United States. So there's probably no reason why the remnants of Beryl might not fire up again. At the end of the day, I think they both may wind up having the same outcome in that the systems are both going to be out to sea in the longer term. Chris is going to become a hurricane on Monday. It continues to show signs of organization, but it is having no impact really on any land area in the Carolinas, except for the fact that it's kicking up the surf. And I think this is going to be the main thing going forward as we go through the middle part of this week as it moves along to the northeast. Probably kicking up the surf up through Virginia to southern New England. There is the possibility of it coming close to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and that's something we're going to want to keep an eye on. At that point, it may wind up being an extra tropical system, but we shall see. In the meantime, folks, those of you on the chat board, welcome aboard. I'm assuming that the audio is okay. If it's not, just let me know, please. But I reset everything, and hopefully everything is working out all right. So why don't we start off with the U.S. satellite view? Oh, look, there's two of me. Sorry about that. But I'm everywhere. We'll start with the U.S. satellite loop here. Whoops. Try to bring that back up to the top. And there you have it. So you can get a perspective of just what's happening all across the U.S. With the dry air that covers the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states. And that dry air, okay, somebody's telling me that there's some distortion here. Let's see if I can rectify this. Okay, hopefully the mic is back on. I apologize for this, folks. I should almost start over. Um, Testing 1, 2. Just let me know if you can hear me. That would be great. I would appreciate it. All right. Okay. The mic is on. All right. Good. I apologize for this, folks. Anyhow, in television and in live streams, you have technical issues happening. So I'm glad you hear me. I hope you hear me okay, and that should be good. Okay, so the front came through dry. The front, Howard Vanderhoff makes a point about the timing of the front, and that is important, of course. Fronts that come through earlier in the day versus later in the day. It looked as if this one was going to do something, but it didn't. And one of the things that I spoke to one of my friends at the Weather Service and about this, because it hasn't gone unnoticed, at least in our area, parts of the coastal areas of Long Island and the New York City metro area, that the amount of thunderstorm activity has been on a downswing for the last 5 years. And apparently there's some data to support the fact that there's a 5-year cycle for thunderstorm activity, and that we have just kind of hit the bottom of that 5-year cycle, and that it should be rising over the next 5 years. There's more work to do as far as the research on this. But I guess, the dynamics just didn't time out well with the timing of the front. Dry air came in a bit faster, probably cut off some of the thunderstorm development. There was some heavy thunderstorms that occurred in parts of South Jersey, but South and Central New Jersey. But as far as having a bit of a widespread event, which is what the Weather Service had this big area of flash flood watches up, that never really materialized. It just seems to be one of these things right now where we're in this cycle where there's a bit of a boilerplate over parts of the area, and that's preventing thunderstorm activity. Okay, let's get back to Chris. You see it there off the East Coast. And by the way, this is real time. The satellite loop, you can see that line. That is the sun setting and going to the IR picture in the last couple of, the infrared picture in the last couple of frames. So the Chris in and of itself is looking pretty good in terms of the structure on the satellite view. I'm going to bring up a couple of different shots here, and let's get this window capture up. Let's try that. Okay, it's just briefly going to look a little funky, and now it should be okay. So here's going to bring the close-up shot of Chris. By the way, a bit of a long day, folks. I did do some fishing today, so I'm a little bit tired. But here's the close-up visible satellite picture. Notice there's clouds along the Carolina coast, but the core is well out offshore, not even close, and it is expanding. So I really do. The outflow is very good with this. There's there's not a whole lot of wind shear to worry about as far as preventing strengthening is concerned. So this really looks like it will become a hurricane. It will not impact the U.S. mainly because of what's happening upstream with the upper trough, and we'll get to that in just a second. Meantime, I'm going to switch gears here, and we're going to go to Beryl, which has degenerated into an open wave. Now, this satellite loop is very telling. If you look carefully, you can actually see the low-level center just racing away from the thunderstorms that were to the east of it, and those storms all weakening because of the shear that's going on. And then you get another blow-up of storms this evening as it's moving over the Leeward Islands. It looks like it's very close to the island of Guadeloupe, I believe, and moving on up toward the northwest. So these areas are going to get some heavy rains and some gusty winds as this goes by. But and there might be some wind gusts in the 40 to 50 mile an hour range with this. But as far as a closed circulation is concerned, the models were correct in showing the strong wind shear that existed over the Leeward Islands was going to rip this apart, and that's exactly what happened during today. So where are we going with this over the next few days? Well, let's take a look at the GFS model. And the models aren't all that different with this as far as Chris is concerned. You can see it here off the North Carolina coast. Where this is for, by the way, 8 o'clock tonight was the forecast. You can actually see where the low center is predicted relative to the coastline, and it's just not anywhere close by. And as we go through Monday, it just kind of sits there right into Tuesday morning. It virtually doesn't move, but in that time frame, the GFS does show the pressure dropping down to 974 millibars. And I think that's consistent with all the other models that are out there with regards to strengthening. So this really should reach hurricane strength without too much difficulty. And then it begins its move toward the northeast. And as we head into Thursday, it does come relatively close to Nova Scotia, and from there over to Newfoundland. And by the end of the week, at least from the standpoint of the GFS, it was trying to redevelop the remnants of a Beryl when it reaches to the Bahamas. This particular model run, the late afternoon model run of the GFS, didn't pick up on it. So we'll still leave open the possibility because it looks like those remnants are going to be headed in that direction. Now, why is this not going to move up the East Coast closer to the coastline? Well, there are a couple of things going on. When we look at the upper air, and I'm going to actually put it in the paint mode here so we can take a look at the jet stream. And hang on, we'll do a little drawing at this point. And all right, this is being a little bit difficult for me. Hang on one second, I'll try it again. Okay, now we got the paint box up. Excellent. All right, so here's what's going on. When we take a look at the profile here of the upper air at 18,000 feet, the 500 millibar level, and here's your upper high, right, like that. So you actually have, you know, northeast winds in the upper atmosphere along the East Coast. In red, I'm going to draw the base of the jet stream that is in Canada, okay? And it actually dips down out in the Atlantic because of an upper low that's being analyzed out to the southeast of Cape Cod. The main stronger jet is actually a little bit further to the north. Here is Chris, and it's essentially trapped in no man's land. There's another upper high. Whoops. Oh, come on. Draw for me. There we go. There's another, the base of the Atlantic ridge is out offshore. So Chris is sitting in between all of this. It's basically, as I said, in no man's land. Now, how does that change? How does that change as we move into Tuesday? Well, now I'm going to put up, I'll put up the Tuesday jet stream, the 500 millibar map for Tuesday, and you can take a look at how it changed now from what we just had. So the upper ridge, and we'll draw that in blue. Now the orientation of the upper ridge is further to the west, okay? Your Canadian jet is now dipping southward. The base of that jet is just about into Delaware Bay. You have the Atlantic ridge is still out here, right here. But now Chris is beginning to respond to a trough that is coming down around energy that is in southeastern Canada. So from here, we've got the beginnings of an opening, and Chris should start heading in this particular direction. And when we take a look at how the upper air evolves from this point going forward. And we'll bring back the GFS here for you. So if we take a look at how the upper air goes going forward, you can see how that trough comes down and just lifts it and picks it up and brings it to the northeast. Actually, as I said, brings it very close to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. In fact, we can take a look at the the Canada view here. And here's southeastern Canada. And there you have it here for, this is Thursday. It comes very close to Canada, and at this point, it's probably becoming extratropical. The other models are a bit further out to the east with this. We should bear that in mind. The European, which, you know, kind of has it close to Nova Scotia. So that's actually come in a bit to the left. And the Canadian, I'm going to go back to the preset map with the Canadian. And the Canadian actually takes it almost right over Nova Scotia, although it does weaken it by the time it gets there and goes to the west of Newfoundland. So it's probably a good idea for those of you who are in the Canadian Maritime provinces to just keep an open ear about how this thing evolves. And of course, pay attention to your Canadian National Weather Service. I can't really answer specific questions regarding impacts to your area. I'll leave that to the folks at the Canadian Met Office and use them as your go-to source, just as I tell the folks on our side. When the hurricane threatens, you go to the National Weather Service and your local government officials and government statements to gather the information that you need to make those decisions that might be on the table in a situation like this. Okay, back to the GFS, and as we take a look at the rest of the week, you know, once this goes, and here's Chris again, and it moves out to the northeast. After that, it looks like there's a weak front that approaches and falls apart. The next more important cold front coming into the east is probably not until Tuesday of next week, and then there'll be a shot of some drier air behind it. We are, you know, continuing to argue that as far as the long range forecast is concerned, when we look at the upper air pattern, that we are seeing general troughing in the east and ridging in the western part of the United States. Here's the long range, and you can see the trough is pretty obvious here in the east, but we'll run it back from the beginning so you can see how it gets there. And by the way, these maps are always available to you at tropicaltidbits.com. And Levi Cowan, very generous for letting us use these maps on a daily basis. But okay, so here's, you know, the jet is just to the north of New York City here as we go into next week, but you know, we still keep seeing these arms coming into the east, so there's a general tendency for troughing in the east and the ridge wanting to be in the west. And there is also somewhat of a strong ridge off the southeast coast that's kind of nosing into the Carolinas, so that may have some impact as well with regards to how much moisture gets involved. And for that matter, with respect to hot weather, I continue to maintain that not that it isn't going to get hot. We'll probably have a few days here along the way where we are going to see some hot weather, but I still maintain that we'll probably not be able to string more than a day or two back to back of hot and humid weather before something comes along and knocks it down. And it doesn't look like we have anything too extreme to worry about. As far as severe weather is concerned tonight, as we take a look at the Storm Prediction Center showing two areas of risk, one in the southwest across Arizona with the possibility of severe thunderstorms. And tonight we have, as of almost 10 minutes after 8 Eastern time, we have a severe thunderstorm watch that is going on through parts of Minnesota and the Dakotas, and that's in an area of marginal to slight risk. If you are watching this on a replay later tonight, please check your local National Weather Service office and you can access that at weather.gov, so you can see the latest satellites and radars. And this view here with the radar you're seeing in the background is as of 8:08 Eastern time. So obviously, if you're watching this at midnight, you're going to be watching an old radar. So I think that pretty well sums up where we're going with all of this. So these tropical systems right now uh, don't, they're interesting to watch. And Chris will probably become a hurricane, making this the second hurricane of the season. But we don't see any threats as far as land threats. There will probably be impact to the beaches and to some coastal areas, but not seeing any threats with regards to landfalls. As far as heat waves go, Nick Cortez, no, I don't see anything extreme. I think we'll probably see upper 80s and low 90s here on Tuesday, but that might be the one hot day this week. And thanks for hitting Super Chat, by the way. Really appreciate it. Let's see, I'm trying to get to everybody here. T-Bear, hope all is well. Overperformed here, temperature 86, not complaining. Temperatures did make it up into the low and mid 80s today, and the humidity stayed nice and low, and I'm liking that. I'm not a fan of the extreme heat. It's like Nick Cortez apparently, can't survive unless the temperature is over 100. That's not happening. Okay, if we didn't do it in the last event, we're certainly in the last stretch when we had the ridge in the east. We're certainly not going to do it anytime in the next 10 days. Chris Alley, I did see you on here. Nice to see you on, buddy. Hope everything is well. Everything's going well on this end. Let's see. Trying to see. Did anyone hear that Chris caused a rip currently death? I'm sorry. I'm kind of not understanding that, Weather Hub TV. Can you just kind of elaborate on that? Do I see the tropics more active in the long range? Good question. I think everybody kind of, folks came out with their original forecast and they looked at that ocean water temperature out in the tropical Atlantic and they backed away from their original predictions. And now suddenly, but with that and the possibility maybe of an El Nino starting in the Pacific, that they've all scaled their forecasts back. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder whether they should have done that or not. And they may have also panicked a little bit because they didn't see any activity in the month of June, which, in my view, it's not unusual that we don't see activity in the month of June. Thanks, Timothy Veltman, for the kind words, by the way. I really appreciate it. Try to do my best. What about the tide and surf levels on the East Coast with Chris? Are they going to be higher than usual? The surf is going to get kicked up somewhat, and we'll probably have some higher than normal tides, but it's going to be moving at a pretty good clip. So we might have some, I would say, minor issues, relatively speaking, for a day or two. Best chances of that will probably be maybe from Wednesday and Thursday for the northeast coastal areas. But I'm thinking it's not going to be anything too serious with regards to that. Just Israel, wish we can have this weather all summer. Yeah, this is great. I agree with you. I wish it could be like this. One of the things I noticed on yesterday. I noticed yesterday when I woke up and looked out my window, and just saw how, not just how clear it is, but how blue the sky was, but the I guess the relative cleanliness of the air. There was no haze at all. The visibility was unbelievable. I hadn't had a day like that in so long. I forgot what it looked like, and it just felt so wonderful. And of course, the nights have been terrific with temperatures down. We were down in the 50s this morning. It doesn't help my pool because it cools off the water considerably. But those are small problems, obviously. But Yeah, I mean, if it could be like this, it's just so comfortable and so nice, and it's not. It's wonderful not having to go outside and into a immediate soaking sweat. The air was almost unbreathable by the time we got toward the end of the week. Dio Nankumar, yesterday was somewhat cold. Let's say cool, okay? Because it was in the 70s all day yesterday, but let's call it cool and not cold. Eric Spencer, do you know what causes the 5-year cycle? I guess you're referring to what I was talking about earlier with respect to the thunderstorms, the 5-year cycle for this particular area. I don't know. We didn't really get too deep into the conversation, and my friend did tell me that they were kind of looking at this. It was sort of an early look that they seem to have discovered this idea. That there might be some kind of 5-year cycle that works up in this part of the Northeast. But they were going to gather more data and look into this deeper. As I get information on it, I will, of course, pass it along. Garo Vestas, do I have any idea when it's going to start to get cooler, September, October, or is it one of those where we see it gets, or we see it get 50s here, 50s and 60s? You know, the last number of years has been a habit of the ridge in the east popping up toward the end of the summer and lasting through the first part of fall. I'm wondering whether this year is going to be different. I don't know. But the last several years, we've been seeing these, what I guess we could refer to as extended summer seasons into the month of September, and fall seems to start later and later. On the other side of that, we've also seen where the springs seem to be starting later and later. So I don't know if that's a long-term thing or it's just something that's the case over just the last few years. We'll know soon enough when we get there. I'm also, as you know, and I've said this many times, I am not a long range guy. Uh, I've never been able to really quite get my head around the long range. A lot of folks are really into it. It's not really my thing. I'm more like a short. I have a lot of fun trying to figure out the weather going out for a week or two, and I think that's where I kind of want to leave it. I'm sorry, I must have gotten something in my eye because it seems to be burning just a little bit. I'm not sure what it is. And I think Howard is right, Garrow. Enjoy the summer first before we start worrying about the fall and the winter. Got a long, long way to go. James NASCAR asking about my app that I'm going to be coming out with. We're still working on it. Hopefully, it'll be done in the next couple of weeks. It'll be uh, basically going to try and take a lot of the stuff that's on my website and just get it on app form, because I know a lot of people on phones, basically like to go to apps and use those rather than go to browsers and web pages. So just to make things easier, I'm going to try and put this in app form, and it will be free. So that's also a good thing. It will definitely be free. All right, folks. Look, we're gonna have to let it go at this point. Thanks for being here tonight. Just again, to remind everybody, when it comes to severe weather and when it comes to hurricanes and tropical storms, as far as any specific questions regarding what you should do in the event that we come to a day where one of these things threatens, please direct your questions to your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov or your local government officials. You know your area best, okay? And also, with those of you that are watching this later on tonight, the radars, the satellites are all from around 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you have severe weather that is an issue where you are living, bear in mind that the radars are dated and you need to check your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov to take a look at the latest radars and satellites and if there are any warnings and watches up for your particular area. And also, as a reminder, we are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program and Affiliate Advertising Program, designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon and its affiliated sites. There's an Amazon link on the description of this video. If you shop on Amazon and go through that link, it's a great way to get your stuff, and at the same time, Amazon throws my channel back some coins so I can get a couple of cigars and everybody is happy. And thank you for those of you who have done that. And thank you, Nick Cortese, for hitting Super Chat tonight. Weather and low, yes, you have nothing to worry about when it comes with respect to Chris. All right, have a great evening, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow. The Joe and Joe Weather Show will be back on Facebook at its usual time around 9:15 Eastern, and I'll be back with a live stream tomorrow night, probably at about 6 o'clock Eastern time, but in case it's different, just check the schedule on my YouTube channel.